Greetings everybody, it's Dan once again bringing you guys another video. Today we're going to be talking about how to be an overall smarter player. We're going to cover a variety of subjects that will vastly improve your game sense and awareness. Being able to process this information faster than your opponents will surely give you a big edge when in the game. Be sure to pay attention and remember to use these tips in game when you're playing. Let's get into it. For our question of the day, I want to ask you what your current favorite skin in the game is. For me, I really like my last variant Elder Flame Vandal. I was actually waiting for Riot to put back in the Reaver Vandal, but I decided to only get this Vandal. It's the only skin I like in the bundle. I'm really excited to see what other skins they're going to add in the future. I really need an insane Phantom skin next because they've just been giving the Vandal a lot of good skins, but not the Phantom. I know that they'll knock it out of the park with the next new Phantom skin, just wait. Let me know in the comments section what your favorite weapon skin currently is and why. Let's get into the video for how to be smarter in-game. First off, we have been pressing tab. Wait, this has to be wrong. You're probably thinking this is so stupid, I press tab every time I die. But you're probably not understanding the importance of the information displayed on the scoreboard. By pressing tab in between before the start of every round, you can see both money and ultimate stacks. Be sure to always take a look at the enemy's money to see if they're saving or buying. If they normally have 3 players that can full buy, assume they are normally going to be buying. Also, if they have like 5,000 plus credits, be wary that they can buy operators, especially if they're playing an angle like Haven C Long or Ascent Mid. If you've been going to a location like Haven C Long and notice the Sova that's been there the last few rounds has like 6,000 credits, you best be expecting he has an operator there. Alongside with paying attention to the enemy team's money, you also want to pay attention to enemies' ultimate stacks. For example, if they have something like Brimstone Ultimate, you want to play away from narrow spaces like U-Haul on Bind A. If they have Sage Res, after you get a kill, you might want to play around the area to try and kill Sage when she goes for the resurrection and have some option to kill them past her wall. All of this comes from hitting the tab button and seeing the scoreboard. So instead of just looking at your beautiful KDA, let's try and make the scoreboard a bit more useful than that, yeah? Learn to always be aware of what enemies can buy and what ultimates both teams have available. Next up is watching the flank. I'm sure you've been shot at countless times before in the back. Not a great feeling, huh? I know I've been a broken record on this, but I want you to be constantly glancing at your minimap whenever you're not in a dangerous area or gunfight. Look where your teammates aren't at and hold that area. It's always nice to let opponents walk into your crosshair and get the first pick. If they aren't pushed up after like 10 or so seconds and you cleared it, remember to walk back to regroup with your team instead of running. Running might give away your position and give info to the enemy team that you aren't hitting said bomb site. Make sure you're paying close attention to the minimap and always check your flank. More often than not, opponents are really greedy and will be pushing unless you let them know that it is not allowed against you. You want to punish these rats lurking behind you and make sure they don't keep doing it. After you successfully stop a few pushes, they will most likely be more scared to continue their aggression. And from there, you gain a lot of map control when enemies start to play passive. On attacking, if you're having trouble with getting shot from behind a lot of the rounds, try to start out with defaults early in the round just to be watching pushes to make sure enemies don't just disrespect and push out everywhere. Set the tone early. Moving on, I want to talk about info gathering. Info gathering gives you a big advantage in this game so you can have proper crosshair placement and be more prepared to shoot your opponent when they appear. I want to tell you to, instead of blindly peeking out in unsafe areas, start jump/jiggle peeking more often instead. In dangerous areas you're expecting the enemy to be at, make sure you A+D to try and spot the enemy and then decide what you want to do. If you're behind like Haven A site default box, you can jump peek over it towards A long. If you do see enemies, you can set up flash, smoke, or just straight up wide swing on the enemy. Up to you, but I want to make sure you get the info on where the enemy is first before you do anything. Make this a habit of doing your best to try and find the enemy's location first and then take your gunfight. This will show excellent results further down the line against better players and as you improve. Of course, as well, if you're playing Sova or Cypher, it makes your job a lot easier. The spy cam is a gift from God as it helps you clear areas without putting yourself at risk. If you know the area is clear, you can relay that information to your team and try to push up to control more area as well, maybe leading to a possible flank. For Sova, same concept. The recon dart will allow you to see where enemies are early and what their intentions are on the defensive side. For offense, the Owl drone is really useful for going in first instead of a player and can scout dangerous areas for your team. If you're not sure of the situation at hand, remember to calm down and try to scout your enemy first and then make a decision after. You obviously don't want to peek into 5 people, so always try to take 1v1s as much as you can. For our next one, this one is something interesting you might not be thinking about a lot, but it's playing the smoke. Oftentimes, people will just think smokes are like walls so enemies won't push through, but that's very false, and you'll be reminded why when someone pushes out and kills you. Always be mindful that smokes can be pushed, and be wary of opponents doing so. In that same regard, you can also try to look for your own opportunity to walk through smokes as well. There are many times where, like I mentioned, people aren't watching the smoke, and that could be your enemy. If you can find timings or spots where enemies might not be watching, you'll get in places where the enemy isn't expecting. So I want you guys to be watching smokes more often, and also try to actively see if certain smokes can get you in more advantageous positions. While it applies to everybody, Omen's smoke is a great example of this. Since it's hollow inside, it has great potential to do tricky stuff with. There are always going to be controllers right now in games, so make sure you know how to play around smokes and be wary of the potential dangers that could be waiting for you in them. Smokes are not like sage walls, and if you keep thinking like it's safe, you'll get punished time and time again. I mentioned Minimap a lot for watching flanks, but it has a lot more uses than that. The Minimap is very useful for seeing utility being used. This is a habit that needs to be trained a lot, and people struggle with this. Some people are just focused purely on aiming in front of them and too tunneled to look at the Minimap. It's understandable because you want to be prepared for enemies appearing in front of you, but at the same time, you need to have awareness of what is going on around you as well. The Minimap provides a lot of information similar to League, but you have to know how to process that information relayed, which is the difficult part for some people. The Minimap has indicators for almost every ability except for ones that do damage, like Brim Molly and Raise Nade. So stuff like Cypher Spy Cam, Sova Recon Dart, and every smoke shows up on the map. And based on stuff like that, you can kind of expect certain things like pushes or where enemy agents are playing. An example I'll give is if an enemy Cypher is using his spy cam aggressively and you hear it. If you hide around the corner and the spy cam doesn't spot you, it's most likely he'll push, not expecting a person in that area. There are other nuances you have to pay attention to too, but that's a simplified example. Another thing is also ultimates do show up on the map too, and they are usually big indicators the enemy team is committing. If you see a breach ultimate coming towards your site, it's most likely a committed take onto that site. You have to condition yourself to process information you see on the minimap, and the faster you do that, the better you'll get. Picking up on small tendencies like this will help you rotate faster to assist your teammates on the defensive end. This one is more based on experience, but it's about learning your opponent's habits. If you see what your opponents have been doing and have been losing to it, remember what they did. Always think to yourself, what happened in the round? Did they flank you, flash a good spot, or had ultimates you weren't prepared for? Well, they will probably do it again in the future, so you want to be more prepared if they do try the same thing again. This doesn't apply for that one game. A lot of players will do common things, so if you have experience from previous games, that translates well for future games, as you'll be less susceptible to it in the future. If you know that they've been playing a certain spot, you can now throw utility or ultimates in that location. If Cypher has been trap wiring the same spot, you can probably destroy them early in the round. If they've been double pushing Haven A long, try flashing early to push them off and get some kills maybe. Learning how to punish those habits is a bit more advanced, but definitely focus on what certain players like doing. The more you catch on, the more you can exploit them in certain areas and get more frags. Every time I lose a round or die, I always try to explain to myself what happened and what went wrong. So for the next time, I can make sure it doesn't happen twice in a row. Every mistake is a learning opportunity. Last up is knowing rotations. This one is very simple the more you play. You have to know defaults for each map or see how your opponents are playing and adjust to it. Let's say, for example, Ascent. Ascent normally has 1 at B as anchor, 2 in the market area, 1 catwalk, and 1 as anchor. Based on this, if you get a kill on catwalk, you probably want to go to A as rotations are going to be slower from B to A. If you get a kill on a person B main, the 2 people from markets can rotate very quickly onto the B site. I want you guys to keep in mind how enemies position for their defaults and try to play around that. And then after, the next step is you want to know where you should be going after a pick. Obviously, go to areas where the enemy team is lacking manpower in. Right now, it's a lot easier said than done, but watching VODs is a great way to help you understand what enemies like doing and seeing common habits of players. I'd really advise, in order to improve, to be watching and analyzing your own gameplay to see what you can improve on. If you need help with that, definitely go check out ProGuides.com for coaches that can assist you in doing so. And that's our video on how to become a smarter player. Hopefully these topics helped you out and will help to improve your gameplay. By being able to process these certain bits of information faster in-game, it'll help you out in so many ways and lead to more round wins. Of course, it'll take some time to implement some of these habits, but slow and steady will win you the race. Good luck, my friends, and as always, my name is Dan, and I wish you all the best. Peace out.